November came in with a cold rain, inspiring a sense of urgency to finish off the final touches of prepping for the long winter to come. Busting out more hoodies, coats, blankets, and robes, most of which has not seen daylight since last winter. Checking the seals on windows and doors, servicing the heater, stocking up on portable emergency heating supplies and candles in case of a power outage. Restocking the pantry and all of the non-perishables. Re-insulating the shelters for our outdoor animals with a slight change in their feed to help them keep on their winter weight. All things we do every year this time of year. I made it a point to take the time to get outside and aimlessly wander through the rain-wet, glistening fall landscape. Mother Nature's final burst of color, like the grand finale of a season-long fireworks display. The rainy days seem to add contrast, depth, and shadow to the colors, like a filter that only the fading sun can apply. University is enchanting this time of year, as all of the students return to college and bustle from building to building in the ants' march of higher learning and the overly romanticized notions of dark academia. The autumn vibe of books and coffee shops, low cloud broody days, rumors of secret clubs focused on English literature, poetry, and the humanities while listening to classical music and drinking various shades of wine. And me, not much different with my love of deep diving into local history, or most recently a copy of Dorian Gray. In the coffee shop with my Irish grog sitting next to my friend Abby, who was sipping mint tea and reading a rather dull economics book, who offered to trade the books for a length of a cup. I found her measurement of time rather fascinating. The length of a cup, the time it took us to finish our drinks. I honestly would have chugged the whole thing if it ended the torment of having to read an economics textbook. I shared this sentiment with Abby, to which she responded, "Well then, you'll just have to look out the window until I finish my tea," as she snatched the book from me and pretended to be reading intently before handing it back with a giggle that made me giggle. The window was covered in raindrops. Not much of a view. Still, I found myself staring at it more than my book after we both sort of went back to reading a half a page or so before we continued talking, then laughing, then discussing our favorite drinks at the shop, and then the restaurants and our other favorite places in town. Small talk on an otherwise dull rainy day. Snuggled down on a leather couch in the corner of the coffee shop with books now neglected. There's an ineffable quality to experiencing these moments without distraction. There's no rush. No clock at all. The patrons of the coffee shop come and go in the background like ghosts, barely noticed beyond the slight flicker in the peripheral. Nothing else exists, and the only hint of reality being somewhere beyond this moment is when you notice the cold air drafting across the floor every time someone opens the door. There were warmer places for us to be than the coffee shop. For the length of a cup. I'll never forget that phrase. Just after sunset that evening, the rain turned to sleet outside the window and then to our first snow of the season. Thick, fluffy, wet flakes landed and instantly struggled to survive against the still warm earth. But a bitterly cold wind accompanied their arrival and aided them on their quest to live a little longer than a few minutes, which many of them did. The next morning no longer held autumn energy, but loud warnings of the coming winter made more prominent by the all-too-familiar sting in the air. The partly cloudy day mocked what sunlight did make it through the clouds, and laughed at its attempt to melt the first snowfall. Refusing to give in to the scent of melancholy lingering about, and the nagging desire to settle in next to the fireplace with my book, I set out on a mission to capture one of the semi-rare sights I could this time of year, and capture on film the essence of winter frozen roses. The trees, still donning some color, shivered and tried to shake off the flakes that had landed on their branches, making it appear as if they were tossing glitter at you as you walked beneath them. The wind seemed to come in waves that made you acutely aware when it hit you head-on. Like having a loud friend walking with you who refuses to shut up and just keeps pumping out random complaints that you have no interest in yourself every now and then. Walks like this with your phone put away and experiencing all of it firsthand without distraction is a war on the brain rot of the internet and just about everything else the modern world swears is important. Of course, when I see a sidewalk, I don't just see a sidewalk. I see everyone who ever walked them, and make an effort to put my foot in their footsteps. I remember playing that game as a child, back when snow fell much deeper than it does now. A coffee shop conversation of shared interest, not a cell phone in sight. Dinner at a favorite restaurant near sunset. Eating slow and actually enjoying and discussing the meal while watching the cars traverse streets that glimmer in the streetlight. A long, deep, dreamless sleep that night when everything in the world fell away, if only for a little while. Waking to snow the next morning and excitedly rushing out into it before the sun had a chance to melt it away just so you can see the white-cloaked packed flakes on roses that refuse to give up. Only to obsess over the idea of returning home where hot cocoa will replace the normal coffee brew. If only for the length of a cup before switching back to the coffee. Lighting the candles and incense the smell of Nag Champa and cinnamon. Warm powder and golden light as you settle in to write it all down in your journal and wait for the next story. Then, it happens. But at some point, we all come face to face with it. The truth that this life, our story, has an ending. Not tomorrow's problem, not some distant fear. Just a quiet, honest truth. That one day, the breath we take in will be our last. And that's okay. We spend so much of life chasing more time, more success, more money, more chances to rewrite the chapters we wish had gone differently. But there comes a moment, a stillness, where you just stop running. Where you look back at your life and you realize it's enough. You've loved. You've hurt. You laughed until your stomach ached. You've made mistakes and learned things the hard way. You've been alive. Truly alive. And maybe you didn't do everything you dreamed of. Maybe the world won't remember your name. But the people who needed your light, they saw it. The ones you loved, they felt it. And that's what matters. Accepting it isn't about giving up. It's about finally understanding that this life, imperfect as it is, was enough. It's about being grateful for the small things you once overlooked. The warmth of sunlight through your window, the sound of rain, the feeling of being held. It's about closing your eyes, not with regret, but with peace. You don't need to fight the ending, because endings are what make stories beautiful. They give meaning to the middle, to every choice, every mistake, every moment. So when the time comes, breathe. Smile. Know that you were here, and that your story mattered.
Why don't you run from me? What are you wondering?